Mr. Watson here, and in this video we're going to look at the adaptations that can occur through aerobic training in an aim to increase your aerobic capacity and VO2 max. So following an aerobic training program at the correct intensity and usually in that aerobic zone, 70 to 80% of maximum heart rate, for 3 to 5 times a week for the correct duration, usually 40 to 80 minutes, and having your program last for at least 12 weeks, you're going to experience some significant structural adaptations to your body, specifically the cardiovascular, respiratory, musculoskeletal, and metabolic systems. And this will have a big impact on your aerobic capacity and your VO2 max. Now, with this presentation, I'm going to show you some slides of tables of the adaptations that can occur. So I just like you to pause the screen and take notes as you'll see. So some of them there's a lot, so I'm not going to explain them all. But due to the nature of me making these videos, you can pause. Okay, so let's look at the respiratory system. Now, as we go on to these slides, on the left, you're going to see structural adaptation. This is the physical change that happens to your body, so something changes. On the right side of the table, that's the effect that change has. How does that help? Okay, and then at the bottom you have overall, like a summary. Okay, so you can start taking notes here. What I do want to point out, the first bullet point makes it easier to perform exercise, reduces the onset of fatigue, delays the onset of blood lactate acid, and increases the intensity and duration of your performance. That's a line you're going to see on every slide which has a table of adaptations. So you need to get used to that line, as it's very important and often is a good exam answer. So through improving your respiratory system through aerobic training, you'll get an increased volume of oxygen diffused into the bloodstream, and it'll also decrease your breathing rate at rest and submaximal exercise. An interesting one there, also alleviates the symptoms of asthma. And obviously asthma is something that restricts the airways and limits your breathing. So it does have an impact on health. So remember, just pause and make notes here. We have the cardiovascular system, and we see we have a lot of structural adaptations here, and therefore a lot of functional effects. We'll look there at the first bold word. This come up in AS, and that is blood viscosity. And basically what this is, it's the thickness and the stickiness of your blood. So we want to lower that because this is a measure of the resistance to blood flow through a vessel. So the less sticky and the thinner your blood is, the better your venous return and the better your blood flow. So quite simply, that's a good adaptation to have, and that's what aerobic training can do. It also obviously is going to help get the oxygen to the muscle cells. It can decrease your blood pressure. Again, there's our famous line there that we need to know. And also at the bottom we have a lower risk of coronary heart disease, hypertension and stroke. Now these can be found in the key terms in the book on page 94. So remember, just pause here to take notes. We have the musculoskeletal system. Again, a lot of adaptations and a lot of functional effects, and they're all about increasing the ability of aerobic energy production. And we can also increase the strength of connective tissue, giving us more joint stability. Okay, and again, the famous thing, it increases the duration of the performance because we have more fuel, and it allows us to delay blood lactic acid and increases the intensity and duration of performance. Okay, again, we can decrease the risk of injury, of osteoporosis and osteoarthritis. Okay, and then we've also got there increasing the metabolic rate, increasing our metabolism, so you can expend more energy, therefore manage your weight. So the better your metabolic rate, the more you're working, the more energy you're expending, the more calories you're burning, and you can manage your weight. Then we have the metabolic functions, very similar to the musculoskeletal. It helps manage weight, increases your metabolic rate. It helps you break down fats, the triglycerides. We will come to this in the energy systems in more detail, but triglycerides are basically how fat is stored in the body, and breaking these down obviously helps because, as we know, with glycogen being carbohydrates and triglycerides being fat, they're the main fuels for our body, and we're going to come on to fuels and aerobic capacity in the next presentation. Again, it can prevent type 2 diabetes as it decreases your insulin resistance. Okay, so like I said, you can pause these slides and take down your notes. Now, what I will say is you probably need to know 2 or 3 for each system. So respiratory, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, and the metabolic. You don't need to know them all. As we know in the paper, there aren't many questions that go above 6 marks. I mean, it's great if you know them all, because the more knowledge you have in the body, the more you can improve your own training. But there is quite a lot there, and over a year course, it's a lot to remember. But I'd say specifically aiming to really drill in 2 to 3 adaptations for each system. I'm just going to show you some graphs. And on the left here, we can see how a 20-week training program increased muscle glycogen storage. So prior to the training, we were storing 15 grams per kilogram there of muscle glycogen, and then after up to 40. So this was training 4 days a week for 20 weeks, and that's how much of an impact it had on muscle glycogen stores. So obviously muscle glycogen, just to recap, is what produces energy, okay? It's stored as glycogen and turned into glucose. So that provides energy for you to train and perform. On the right there, we have how training can affect mitochondria. Okay, so if we don't remember what mitochondria is, it's a structure in the sarcoplasm which is ultimately responsible for aerobic energy production, hence very important for increasing aerobic capacity. So that's great to get adaptations in this. So as you can see, from 25 weeks of training, you can achieve a 120% increase in the number of mitochondria. Okay, you can also increase the size of the mitochondria up to 40%. So obviously that's having a major impact on our aerobic energy production. So that is key. Okay, you also might be asked to analyze graphs in the exam. It's also a popular way of testing your knowledge in the tests. Okay, and then just to finish off here, so if you are doing aerobic training, you're going to experience a significant increase in your aerobic capacity and your VO2 max. Okay, so ultimately it's going to allow you to perform at a higher intensity. It's going to allow you to perform longer. It's going to delay the fatigue-related onset of blood lactic acid, the accumulation of that, and physical activity will become more efficient. And like I've said, you can maintain that intensity for longer periods of time. And the final point I want to make is that obviously there's differences in this. Like as we saw with continuous training, it can be as light as 60% of your maximum heart rate. And that might be recommended for sedentary individuals, those who are not currently active, because they will probably use aerobic training for health-related reasons, such as the protection against the heart disease, making it easier to perform day-to-day tasks such as walking upstairs. So that's why a sedentary individual would be encouraged to improve their aerobic capacity through aerobic training. On the other hand, athletes simply doing it to improve performance. They want a higher aerobic capacity, a higher VO2 max, so they can perform to their full potential. So this has been adaptations that occur through aerobic training in an attempt to increase your aerobic capacity.